If you look in the documentation, it states that Oracle Data Pump Technologies enables very high-speed movement of data and metadata from one database to another. We introduced Oracle Data Pump many years ago as a replacement for the old export and import utilities. But Data Pump can do so much more than just export and import. It really offers superior functionality, and you can use Data Pump for some very interesting use cases. Hopefully, this webinar today can inspire you to use Data Pump in a much smarter way. If you need to know more about Data Pump, you can always head into the documentation. Information about Data Pump is stored in the Utilities Guide. Hopefully, many of you are already on Oracle Database 19c or upgrading to 19c. It is our current long-term support release. So you should go into the Utilities Guide in 19c. In the slide deck, you can find a link to it. But if you want to investigate some of the new features, you should head into the 21c documentation, where you can find information about, for instance, the new checksum feature. Now let's talk about Data Pump in detail. You can use Data Pump basically in two ways. First and most common is Data Pump in dump file mode, where you can export the data into a dump file, then transfer that dump file somewhere else and import from that dump file into a new database. In addition to that, you can use Data Pump in network mode. Here, you simply just start the import directly in the target database and then import all the data over a network link. This can be very handy in some situations. If you compare the two options, Data Pump in dump file mode requires access to the file system of the database hosts because we need to move the dump file around. Also, you need to have disk space to hold the Data Pump dump file. But the good thing about Data Pump in dump file mode is that you get the full functionality of Data Pump. In contrast with Data Pump in network mode, you don't need access to the file system of the database host, but you need to have SQLnet connectivity between the two databases, because we need to establish a database link so we can fetch all the data over the network link. You don't need any extra disk space in this case because Data Pump in network mode will not generate a dump file. But there are a few restrictions that apply when you use Data Pump in network mode. It's important to understand with Data Pump that it is a server-side application. It's not client-side. Even though you can sit at your own computer and start a Data Pump job, all the magic will happen on the database server itself. It also means that if you lose connection to the database host, if your computer restarts, don't worry, the Data Pump job, the export or the import will still continue on the database host because it is server-side. Looking a little deeper at the architecture, the main functionality in Data Pump is stored in a PL SQL package called DBMS Data Pump. You can just head into the database and investigate the API. There's really a lot of functionality stored in the DBMS Data Pump package, but it's not enough. We also have the DBMS metadata package that we use to generate the DDL for the objects that you are exporting. If you are exporting a table with an index, we need to have the definition of the table and the index so we can later on recreate those objects in another database. We use DBMS metadata to extract that information. Also, Data Pump uses the external table API and the direct path API. These are not public APIs that you can use yourself in the database, but there is other functionality in the database that uses those APIs as well. Those two APIs are used to very fast and efficiently unload and load data to and from the database. Normally, when you as a user want to use Data Pump, you are using one of the two clients, XDP and IMDP, for export and imports respectively. That's the most common use of Data Pump. But in fact, you can use the Data Pump API, DBMS Data Pump, directly. You don't have to go through the clients. Using the API directly opens up for some really interesting use cases